Josh Frydenberg, the Treasurer, has so far rejected calls to scrap the luxury car tax in the wake of Holden's demise. Joining me now is Labor MP Peter Khalil, live from Melbourne. Good to see you. Why should the luxury car tax stay?
Well, I mean, as far as I know, we're not considering removing the luxury car tax. We'll go through our processes on our tax policy as we head to the next election. But it's kind of remarkable, though, don't you think, that a day after Holden dies, the iconic brand, and by the way, I'm in mourning because I had a Tirana, my dad had a Tirana, 1977 SL 3300. He gave it to me in 1991. It had done 500,000 kilometres, Laura, and it still went like the wind. And I love that car. And, you know, I'm in mourning with millions of other Australians. Even Ford people have been writing to me saying we are devastated because it was part of that Australian culture. If you grew up in the 60s, 70s and 80s, you'd remember that. But the point I want to make is, like, they are focused on removing a luxury car tax, these Liberal MPs, a day after Holden dies. What about the plan for the Holden workers? I mean, this is just another pattern in a long pattern of behaviour by the Liberal coalition government, which basically allowed the auto industry to collapse.
Okay, can I just pull you up there, because this point has been made over the last 24 hours, but the trajectory was already there. If I could just take you through the timeline. Mitsubishi in 2008, Ford in 2013, Holden in 2014, you know, Toyota's demise, also winding back manufacturing in 2017. The list goes on. So some of this happened under Labor's watch too. Yeah,
that's true. The car industry needs support. The point I'm making is that Abbott,
Labor take?
Well, Abbott and Hockey goaded GM to leave and removed the support.
Now, every car industry, 7 years ago.
There are consequences.
Wasn't the trajectory already there before?
There are consequences to actions. When you remove that kind of support for the auto industry, for manufacturing in this country, and remember, every auto industry globally has, the major ones have support from their home governments. The US, Obama gave $1 trillion interest-free loan to Detroit. Germany supports its car industry. You don't think those German cars just come out without German government support. We removed it, and Hockey and Abbott removed it. Yes, it's more difficult to actually make cars in Australia, but it needed that support for us to continue to compete. And remember, we were selling Camrys to the Middle East. You know, and they made the excuse at the time that, oh, the dollar's too high, that's why we can't compete. Well, it's not high anymore, is it?
Well, let's look forward. The luxury car tax has been raised now. Why keep it in place when it was meant to protect manufacturing? There's nothing left to protect.
Well, this is a decision for the government. I saw Josh Frydenberg.
Have you got any?
Well, as I said to you, Laura, our front bench and our policy process will go through that and make our decisions around our tax policy and announce them before the next election. You don't expect me to be announcing as a backbencher a major tax policy at 7:30 in the morning on Sky. As important as your program is, they'll go through that process. I'm just a bit disturbed that they are banging on about the luxury car tax, which is part of that framework of support, yes, for the car industry, but they should be talking about how they support the workers. And how they provide a plan for them.
Wages data is out today. You're a big policy brain. I did want to get you on luxury car tax, but we'll do it again down the track. Now, superannuation is also going to be discussed by Anthony Albanese today in Queensland. Given where wages are at the moment, given the economic climate we find ourselves in, should that compulsory super trajectory to 12% remain as it is, or do we need to have another look at it?
Well, there's been, until now, I guess, or even earlier than now, a sort of tepid bipartisan support, at least support from the coalition government, to stick to the commitment of raising super to 12% by 2025. But they have been constantly wanting to chip away at super. They never supported it. Many of them on the far right wanted to get rid of it. And again, we're seeing the same thing play out. Now, I've got to say to you this. The tyranny of low expectations. You know, we talk about that ACOS report. Yes, wages are low. They're stagnant, and they've been stagnant under this government's watch. But the answer is not to renege on a commitment to have super go up to 12%. That's not the answer. There should be responsibility on the government to ensure that wages rise and people can actually afford the cost of living that they're facing now with such stagnant wages. So I don't buy that argument. I think we can have, it's a false binary to say we can't have both a high super and higher wages. We can do both. And really this is the government and elements of the government wanting to chip away at super as they always have.
Let's talk about China and China's criticism of Australia's response to the coronavirus. We heard the ambassador tell my colleague, our chief anchor Kieran Gilbert, earlier this week that he thought it was overkill, essentially. Do you agree?
Well, I've said on this program, I think a while back, that Australia has its sovereign right and responsibility to look after its citizens, the security and of our state, and take whatever actions are necessary to secure our borders and also to make sure that our people are kept safe and healthy. So I think there is a strong bipartisan support for the actions taken by the government with respect to the coronavirus and making sure it's quarantined based on the best medical advice from the Chief Medical Officer and others. So no, China is well within its rights, or its ambassador is well within its rights to talk on behalf of Chinese citizens. That's fine. Yep. But we have our sovereign rights to take action where necessary to keep our people safe.
I have one more crack on these luxury car taxes. I've just seen that Matt Canavan...
Oh, we've gone back.
I've just seen that Matt Canavan has said that perhaps this luxury car tax should be exempt for farmers. Is that a good idea? Something you might look at?
Interesting. Is Matt Canavan in the front bench anymore?
No, he's on the back bench. That's why he's speaking his mind.
Right. Well, I speak my mind too. Look, on the luxury car tax, as I said, we'll go, as far as I know, we're not considering removing it, but we are going through and reviewing all of our tax policies, and that's a proper process that we'll go through over the next year or so before the next election. Look, it is part of the framework that provided support, a very peripheral part of that framework that provided the overall support for the car industry. And rather than arguing about the luxury car tax, I want them to be focusing on providing a plan for Holden workers who have lost their jobs.
We will see. Peter Khalil, good to see you.
Thank you.